Good morning. All right. Take a look at the blackboard. Take a look at the blackboard. Can you read that? Right. A new order begins with. What's wonky about that, though? Yes. Those of you on Facebook, you will have noticed periodically you'll get a Facebook posting and it'll have a whole paragraph. And the only letters that belong in the word that are in the right order are the first and the last letters, correct? Yeah. Have you ever seen that? And you read it and you have no problem. And it says at the bottom that they've done tests and all of that. Anyway, but the brain automatically puts it in order. Automatically puts it in order. If you know how to read, you're automatically going to put that in the correct order. That's why you could read that sign on the blackboard. So tell me, let me see, it looks like Owen's desk, I heard. Does anybody else, does this look like your desk? Yeah, okay. Or how about your thoughts and your emotions? Do they look like this every now and then? All the time? And do you sometimes feel this level of disorder in your body? Yeah? Yes. Or even, oh gosh, do I dare say it? What about your finances? Some people don't want to look at their finances because they're afraid to. And the thing is, when we pay attention to something, when we pay attention to the order of it, it does get more orderly. Who knew? Who knew? So like I said, this is Albert Einstein's desk. And there are studies that say that people with cluttered desks are more creative. I propose that they have to be creative in order to find anything. Just saying. Basically, order is a natural part of creation. It's everywhere around us. Maybe not your desk. My mother, when she worked for a stock brokerage, her desk looked a little bit like this, only it was piles, and she would get very annoyed if she was gone on vacation and she'd come back and people had rearranged because she knew where everything was, or so she claimed. But this obviously is disorderly, and those of us who have that kind of a desk, and mine goes through cycles, it's frustrating for me because I cannot find things. And what does that do? That takes time from my day. And time is valuable. We cannot reclaim time. So if this is the state of our lives, then we might want to take a look at something. And if you look around you at nature, do you see disorder? When's the sometimes? Who said sometimes? When are the sometimes?
The aftermath of storms, the randomness of things happening.
Okay, the aftermath, tornadoes, okay. And
Order in the tornado.
Exactly, there's an order. Yeah, the result looks disorderly. The event itself, the hurricane, the tornado, the earthquake even, there is an order to it. When I was growing up, it was wonderful. We had these huge woods behind my house, and if I went up the street, excuse me, and it was a rural road, there were even more woods, and I would get lost. And I had a wonderful third grade teacher who taught us everything about the plant life and what plants were on the protected list, etc. And I went out with this awareness that I wouldn't have otherwise had. So I would spot the fern before it became full grown. Have you ever seen the fern when it's in its infancy? It's all curled up. Ever see that? And then slowly as it unfolds. And it's beautiful to be there and part of it. To watch the trees when they're budding. Robert Frost wrote a poem, "Nothing Gold Can Stay." And I remember an English teacher hauling us to the window, 10th grade English, and she goes, "Look out there." And it was spring, and the bushes outside the window were just starting to form those buds, and they were gold. And then the next week, she hauled us to the same window, and look, and there it wasn't gold anymore because the leaves were coming out. And you notice how you need the buds on the trees before you see, or the flowers, excuse me, on the trees before you see the apples or the cherries. Everything has a wonderful order in nature, and it's beautiful to behold. And think of it, it took us a long time to get wireless connection with each other. And they thought it was impossible. Marconi, when he started to tell his friends, he said, "Guess what I know how to do? I can send sound across, the ethers without a wire." They had him institutionalized. And yet we have the plants. I mean, again, growing up in the Northeast, the first plants to come up were the crocus. And it was funny, in February we would have kind of a false thaw. So those of you in the north know about that. And I remember going out in the front lawn, and they're just starting to peek up, and I'm going around, "Go back, go back, go back." But yet the order. You knew that the crocus were going to be the first. Then you knew that you were going to see the forsythia and the lilac trees and so on. And you just knew the order. So nature is this wonderful natural order. And it's something that I think we all strive for. And Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, said that order is the first law of the universe. And indeed, there can be no universe unless its various parts were kept in perfect harmony. So guess what we're talking about this month? This is the year of powerful living, correct? We have our poster over there. We have posters if you want to take them home with you. We have our affirmation cards. And our first one is for order. Oops, that's the wrong switch. So it's order. The color is green. And I did manage, see, I do have green, okay? Managed to wear the color. And it's our ability to organize, balance, sequence, and adjust. Now, the disciple is James, and James is the son of Alphaeus. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Biblical scholar in the room? Sounds good? Okay. I'm looking for my notes. Actually, James is, I think, the little brother of, where do I have that? There it is. Okay. He's also known as James the Lesser, because there's another James who's the son of Zebedee. And Zebedee is the disciple for wisdom, and we've already studied wisdom. And they're very close, aren't they? In powers. For order, you need wisdom to help you bring that all together. And the place in the body where order resides is the digestive organs, just behind the navel. So I often wonder if I have an upset stomach, if there's something in my life that might be out of order. And our affirmation, and we'll say this a little later, is order is established in my life now. All things are working together for good. And that's true. Everything does work together for good. Jesus was talking about order when he said to the people gathered, he said, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory has not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O men of little faith?" AKA knuckleheads, okay? "Therefore do not be anxious, saying, 'What will we eat?' Or 'What shall we drink?' Or 'What shall we wear?' Your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be yours as well." And basically, man, correct, is the highest level of consciousness. We're the only ones with the ability to reason and truly raise our consciousness, raise our vibration. And yet, we haven't been around that long on this earth. And notice that in the creation story in Genesis, we were last to be created, right? Did you know that ants have been around for over 60 million years? Now, I didn't check to see how that equated with roaches. It's probably close. And have you ever noticed how orderly ants are? Yeah, Deborah's an ant expert. I mean, she's always, because every now and then they try to invade in here, and she catches those first scouts, right? And the scout goes, "Hey, it looks good," and goes back and gets the rest. And I found out how that worked in my kitchen one time when I came home, and there was a black strip of them that had invaded while I was away. Yeah. And they all have jobs, you have the carpenters, you have the scouts, like I said, you have the worker, the farmers, the engineers, the construction workers, the soldiers, the babysitters. All of that in an ant colony. And they are, they're such a unified unit. And Albert Einstein once said, when he could find it on his desk, "The belief we exist separate from each other is an optical illusion." And do you ever feel separate from people? Yeah. And I love when I start to feel separate and I'm ready to pick up the phone and call someone to share. And I have a prayer partner from when I was in seminary. We've kept in touch over the years, and we support each other in prayer and sharing our lives. And I remember 2 weeks ago, I almost picked up the phone to call her about something that was disturbing to me, but I knew that her son-in-law was going through a health challenge, so I called her anyway. But instead of saying, "Oh, I want to share with you," I said, how's your son-in-law? And then a couple of days ago, there was something going on. I said, "Oh, I've got to call up Beth because I've got to work through this." And I didn't want to, throw up over the phone to her. It was a minor thing. I thought, you know what, just work on it yourself. And funny thing, we're not separate. And what I was looking at as an issue was totally not. But it was giving the time for me to pick up on the energy to see that it was not. Now, this is true confession. I know that's not something any of you ever experience. But when we think of ourselves separate, I'm reminded of the universe. And look at that. Look at where we are. And this is just ours. This is just our galaxy. And there are many more. So on this earth, we must be connected. I mean, we are, after all, we're all energy, correct? We're all energy. Very good. And in our being given dominion, remember in the Genesis story, Charles Fillmore says that man can never exercise dominion until he knows who and what he is. And knowing brings forth that knowledge into the external by exercising it in divine order, which is mind, idea, and manifestation. You get that? Mind, idea, and manifestation. And it's at the level of mind where we're all connected, because we're connected to God. God is everywhere present. Isn't that what we said at the beginning of the service? We are connected. And we look around and we think, oh, look, I got this dress, she's got that red sweater. We're different. No, not at all. Not at all. We are all the same. We're all connected. And we're here to support each other in an orderly fashion to continue with our spiritual growth. Sometimes we learn order just because it comes naturally to us. And some of us are blessed that we are orderly in our habits. Our desks do not look like Albert Einstein's. And others have to learn the order. I still blame my mother. I'm teasing, of course, but I had the end bedroom at the house. And you had to be coming down to my room to be there, because it wasn't on the way to anything. My brother and sister, their rooms are on the way to other areas. Mine wasn't. So my parents actually didn't come down and check on me much. And I had disorderly habits. That's what came naturally to me. I had a drop and walk filing system in my room. And once a quarter, I would clean it up, because I did feel compelled to do that. And the way I cleaned it up, when there was just a path from the door to my bed, was I took everything and I threw it on the floor. And I started from scratch and I got it all cleaned up. It looked very good, actually, for a few weeks. And that's why I said, my mother should have come down the hall more often. Maybe I would have developed different habits, or not. And depending on our culture, that we grew up in, organization will look different. It really will. Sometimes people come back from certain areas and go, oh, those people are so terrible. And the thing is, what they don't understand is the folks are more in touch with the earth, and they're not as concerned with, a hedge that's trimmed perfectly, whatever that means. Okay, so it depends on how we're brought up and programmed. Organizations, they have a particular order. Have you ever noticed that? When I worked for the state of Arizona, it was the most structured experience I've ever had in my life. When I started working there, the policies and procedures were very tight, and you could not do anything that wasn't in adherence to the policies and procedures. And there was this wonderful woman in the office who would remind me of that every now and then when I didn't do things the way they thought I should. And there was a simple thing, like where to get the photographs developed. And this is back when there was something called film. I think everybody here is old enough to remember film. Okay. Anybody out there? Film is something they used to put in cameras, okay? And I had to go to a particular store to have the film developed, and it was way out of my way. And I questioned that. They said, well, that's where the purchase order is for, and that's where we must take the film. I said, that doesn't make sense. So I kept questioning. And I wasn't always the most popular person because I kept asking why. To things that didn't make sense to me. And as it turns out, 2 employees before me, that was on the way home for him. That's why the department used that particular store. That was all. There's nothing in the policies and procedure. There was no contract. Guess who changed that overnight? And while I was with the state of Arizona, they implemented the quality improvement project, and they took a look at what they did, why they did it, and they made a lot of changes for the good, because the employees were just as frustrated as the public in dealing with government. But the order had become commonplace and no one ever questioned it. And that's what happens with us. One of the things I love about this country is that we're constantly questioning the order. And that's our constitutional right. And you know that in some countries, you would be thrown in jail so quickly for questioning the order. We may not like some of the questions, may not like some of the statements being made. I love that we have the freedom to do so and to be disorderly as we look for the new order. You know, Jesus, remember him? Remember him? He was someone who was constantly challenging the order of the day. And his favorite people to rail out about were who? The Pharisees. Yeah. And the Pharisees, they didn't like Jesus at all either. He was a threat. And remember how often the Pharisees challenged and attacked Jesus? Like, how can you be healing people on the Sabbath? You know, how can you let your disciples gather grain on the Sabbath? And they would claim that it didn't follow the law. And what Jesus kept telling people is, you know, I didn't come to change anything. I came to restore us to the order of the original law and the intent. So he was challenging layers upon layers of religious laws that the priest had imposed upon the Jews. And he was inviting us to go back to the basic teachings of the prophets and of God. You know, to strip away those man-made layers. We're so good at putting those on. And we had Moses, of course. Remember, he went to the Pharaoh and he said, "Let my people go." And Pharaoh said, "Hell no." And what happened, you know, these constant reminders, you know, this order is not working. You know, so they had the plagues, they had the frogs, the death of all the firstborn males and so on. You know, until Pharaoh was forced to let God's people go, to create a new order, to be released from that old consciousness. And it didn't come easily all the time, did it? I mean, how about for you? When you're shifting your way of looking at things? Is it painful sometimes? Emily Cady, one of Unity's early writers, calls it chemicalization. You know, you see there's a new way to do something, and you might go into it gung-ho. Yes, I'm going to do it. This is mine. And then what happens? You know, the old stuff comes up and tries to draw you back, the old comfort zone. It's like the crabs in a barrel, you know. One crab's like, "Oh, freedom!" And he starts to climb out, and all the rest of the crabs, what are they doing? "Hey, get down here." They have them for lunch. I saw a crab carrying another one, and this is in the ocean, and it's like, and I thought, "Oh, isn't that sweet? He's helping out his buddy," and then I realized he was going to eat him. Its own kind of order. So when it's time for us to make that shift, sometimes things have to happen that are so painful that it forces us to do that. Do you kind of see that in the world today? Do you see there's a lot of pain, and perhaps, just perhaps, we're being invited very strongly to step into a new world order, to a new consciousness. You know, this Thursday we're going to be joining with hundreds of thousands of people from around the world for Unity's World Day of Prayer. And when you came in, you found a prayer slip where you can write names and also a prayer affirmation card. And what we're going to be focusing on for World Day of Prayer is what would it mean for you and your life if you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that God lives in you? What if that was your order? How would your life look if you were living every moment from your divine potential in every aspect? You know, your health, your work, your relationships, your plans, your spiritual life. What would that be like? And then what would the world look like if everyone discovered the power within them and unleashed their divine potential? What would that be like? So we're going to come together and in prayer and meditation. And I was thinking, it would be fun to make prayer flags. And then when you come in next Sunday, you can see the prayer flags. We'll put them out. But just to pray for not only our own vibration rising, but for the vibration of this earth. Yes, for all the people that are living in darkness and in fear, that low, dense vibration. And they don't know how to break out. When we come together in prayer, it does make a difference. They did a study of one area where a lot of people in the neighborhood were practicing transcendental meditation. And what they discovered was the crime rate there was lower. There was a woman in Chicago who was, not Detroit, she was very frightened, to live in the neighborhood where she was. She had 3 daughters and she was a single mom. And one night she heard someone in the backyard and he was trying to steal the lawnmowers. So she put on all the lights and it scared him away, but her energy then went into total fear, and the neighbors were making all kinds of suggestions about putting in alarm systems and talking to the police about coming through more often and setting up a neighborhood watch. And she just felt her energy going down and down and down with all these suggestions. And what she did was she created a large decal to put in her window. And it said, "God protects this house." She put it in the front and in the back. And then her neighbors noticed that. And she just... And the neighbors asked her if they would create those for them. And she did. You could even go in line and order them now. And it shifted for the entire neighborhood. That's what a shift in consciousness into a more orderly form, to be in more alignment with God and with the truth of our being. That's what we're here for. And we remember that God is order. God is the organizing principle revealed in the pattern and sequence inherent in all life. Divine order is not a correction of some unhappy condition, but an integrated arrangement of energy in a pattern, sequence, or method. Method. Pattern, So energy in a pattern, sequence, or method. So God is order, and we do live in an orderly universe. So let's claim it, and let's join together and say the affirmation that we have for this month. And what I invite you to do, that's right, wait a minute, one more thing. We have a handout here. It's got all 12 of the powers. And it talks about when you're balanced in that power, and when you're underdeveloped and when you're overdeveloped. Okay? So with order, and we said it's an organized, balanced, sequence, adjust. That's what it means for us to do. And if it's underdeveloped, then it's messy, it's disorderly. We cannot sequence it. And it's difficult adjusting. And it's chaos. This applies everywhere. Our thoughts, our emotions, our bodies, and our relationship with God. And when it's overdeveloped, we have obsessive compulsive, overly tidy, and things must be done in a certain sequence. And we all know people like that. And sometimes we are those people. So this month, focusing, take this with you so it can be your litmus test. So, oh, I think I'm a little overdeveloped, just like the film. Okay? So that we are totally, organized and balanced. Okay? So together, and if you can all see that, sorry, that's blocked a little bit for you. I'll say it and then we can repeat it. Order is established in my life now. All things are working together for good. So let's say that together. Order is established in my life now. All things are working together for good. Let's take that into meditation now and focus on order in your life. Because it is an orderly universe. So I invite you to close your eyes, breathing deeply. Breathing the light and the love that is God. And then releasing on the exhale any disorder you might be experiencing in your thoughts, your emotions, or in your body. Just allowing God's goodness to flow through you. God's healing energy to flow through you. God's love to be you. So begin to picture in your mind that you are about to eat manna from heaven. Remember when the Israelites were out in the wilderness, God sent manna every day to feed them. So you're about to eat that manna from heaven. You might want to see this as a very special gluten-free loaf of bread. Something that is imbued with a higher energy and all the spiritual nutrients you need to solidly build the light of spirit into your mind, into your emotions, into your body. Hold out your hand and visualize the manna or bread in it. And then place that light-filled bread in your mouth. Chew it and sense its flavor. This is manna from heaven. And visualize swallowing the bread and it moving down your esophagus into your stomach. Feel it being digested and assimilated into your system, just as your pancreas, your gallbladder, and small intestine work together to absorb physical food. And as you assimilate the manna, affirm, I'm receiving and absorbing all that I need to bring about divine order in my life. Next, visualize the light-filled nutrients traveling from your solar plexus and small intestine to all of your bones. Feel the higher energy being absorbed and anchored into your whole skeleton. Direct this light particularly to any bone or joint that needs healing. And affirm, I feel divine order in my bones. Divine order flows throughout my consciousness and throughout my body. Then visualize the nutrients of light and energy flowing from your solar plexus center to all of your skin. See your whole body radiating with light that shines in and through your skin. And focus for a few moments on any part of your skin that needs reinforcement, revitalization, regeneration, and reinvigoration? Think about divine order being reestablished in that section of your skin. Now consider any part of your life where you may need more order and organization. Affirm, I see and bring forth divine order in my relationships. I invoke divine order in my work. All is in right order in my home. Harmony and balance and order now reign in my community and all throughout the world. Now returning to this time and this place, let us affirm our order and our oneness with God with our Lord's Prayer.